You're going.
We lived just outside of London, Ontario, the family. If I went one direction, I'd be in London, about 3 blocks. If I went the other direction, I was in farmland. So we're just on the edge of farming country and then the city, a sort of dual thing. I was an outdoor person, so I spent a lot of time outdoors and wandering around and seeing things. When I was in high school, I was in grade 12, and they had a guidance counselor, and what do you want to do? What university will you go to? What courses will you take? And I rather surprised him, said, I don't want to go to university. And I wrote down things I wanted, things I didn't want. I wanted to work outside. I didn't want to work in an office or in a factory or a farm. I wanted the outdoors. So I narrowed it down to mineral exploration was good because you're outdoors, it's mentally and physically challenging. So I went to Hillsbury School of Mines and got into mineral exploration. And I got paid to go camping and hiking. I started working first in Ontario, then Saskatchewan, and then we did a couple reconnaissance jobs in the Northwest Territories. I liked it, so I took jobs in the territories and eventually settled here in '74. Particularly back in those days, we didn't have GPSs, we didn't have satellite phones, we didn't. So when you were out working in the bush, you were on your own or with your crew. And if anything happened, you were isolated. It was going to take you days to get out. And so you had to learn how to survive in the bush. And first year out, I learned how not to get lost. And the thing is if you are going along, what happens is most people panic when they think they're lost. And they go rushing off in a direction and get more lost. What you do is you take the old prospectors thing, sit down, have a smoke, think about this. How lost are you? How long ago was it when you knew where you were? Well, I was only a half hour lost. Half hour ago, I knew exactly where I was, so I wasn't very lost because I could only a half hour walking distance. So you have to figure it out, and I did, and said, okay, if I go this direction, within half an hour, I should know where I am. And sure enough, I did. If I had gone where my first instinct said, I would have been an hour lost at that point. So yeah, that's one of the things you have to learn is to, if you get into trouble, sit down and think it out, think it through. One of the things I loved about prospecting was when we first got out to the Kuwaitan area in Nunavut, it was like walking through a textbook on post-glacial geology. You could see the eskers, you could see the glacial striations, you could see how the scraping of the ice had formed the land and how it had changed. You could see raised beaches. It was marvelous, and that's part of what the exciting part about being out in the field and doing it. All of a sudden, what you learn in the textbook makes a whole lot more sense, and you can see how it actually works. Well, one of the things is, let's say we got a job to go out and look at a property, a number of claims that have been staked, and take a look at it, see what it looks like geologically. Is it worth doing more work on it or another one? You might spend 2, 3 months on that piece of property, going out, doing traverses, putting in a grid, examining it in detail. Then when the job's over, the plane comes and picks you up and you fly, and you see this tiny little piece of land that you explored for 3 months compared to the vastness of the land that you didn't explore. So, plus, you learn, even though someone's looked at it before, it's always worth looking at it again because it's so easy to miss something. You know, you can't cover every square inch of the ground. You're walking traverses maybe 1,000 feet apart. You're just getting a feeling for the land. You're not. So prospecting is one of those things that you can keep going back to the same area and discover new things that you didn't see the first time you looked at it. Companies, if you're doing a job for a company, they usually have a very narrow focus. They're looking for one thing: gold, diamonds, base metals. A prospector, you train yourself, you're looking for everything. Anything that's out of place, anything that's unusual, anything that may at some point become valuable. So you're much more of a generalist than the companies that tend to focus in on a single commodity.
Yeah, my name's Diane Baldwin, and so I came up here as a geologist in 1994, and we were looking for gold north of north of Giant Mine and the Yellowknife Greenstone Belt, and it was actually on Walt's property that we were searching for gold. And currently, there's still work being done on that property by Gold Terra. So exploration carries on for many, many years before any sort of deposit or mine is found or developed. So that work was really interesting because my specialty is volcanic rocks. I'm being trained as a volcanologist, and so I was really happy to come up here with the company and carry out that work. And after that job was finished, I started working for the government, working on the Prospector's grub stake program, which provides funding for prospectors to do work out on their claims. And so I did that, worked for the government for about 17 years. And then I went out on my own as a consultant and carried on doing some consulting work for lithium and other minerals that were being looked for at that time. And that's why I came up to Yellowknife, and I really came up for a 2 or 3 month job. It carried on a little longer than expected, and it became my base of operations when I was in exploration. I kept coming back to Yellowknife and going out to other provinces and territories to do work. I think it's the people for me, the people and the jobs, and because there's a lot of opportunity here and a variety of different types of jobs, whether it's with government or exploration companies or doing your own consulting work, doing reports and other work. And the fact that it attracted people of our prospecting and exploration community, and became a very vibrant sort of hub and great social place too. So it's a very friendly community, and there's a lot of freedom here to get out into the wilderness and out into the beautiful parts of nature that are just so accessible by canoe or by float plane. So that's why I liked it.
For myself, I knew that you have to earn a living. You have to make money somehow to support yourself. So I could do that with exploration 6 months of the year. And the other 6 months I could write, paint, read, do whatever I wanted. I really like that freedom that I could be a prospector, but I'm also an artist and I'm also a writer, because they both go together. The North allows you that freedom where if you're in a big city, you tend to get pigeonholed into a certain thing. And it's really tough for an artist to make a living as an artist. Up here, you didn't have to worry about that because I made my living from mineral exploration. In the art, I could do what I wanted. I didn't have to cater to what sells. I was a real doodler when I was a kid. I was always doodling and getting in trouble for it on the side of my things. And like a lot of people, a picture can be worth 1,000 words. If you're into geology, you're always drawing little sketches of the geology. So that's part of art. And it used to be that most geologists were also artists because they had to draw before the camera was invented, they had to draw the picture of what they were seeing. So that it all fits in together. And it helps make you a much more rounded person and a better thinker. And in geology, you have to be able to draw what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So you just turn that into painting. And I like a lot of information, particularly in the early days, was passed on by people telling stories. At night, you'd sit around camp and people would tell you the stories about their bear encounter or about getting lost in the bush or how they found something. And it's a storytelling that passes information on to the next generation. Unfortunately, with the technology we have, we're getting away from that. And so it's harder for the people to pick up the knowledge they need. Well, you never know what the weather's going to be and how things are going to change, particularly in the far north. Beautiful morning, nice sunny, wintertime, you go out in your snow machine to do a job, put in some grit or to run an instrument. All of a sudden the wind comes up, starts to come up, and you can see the snow starting to blow, drifting snow, and it starts rising. Inside of an hour, you're in a whiteout. You can't see more than a few feet in front of you. You have to figure out how to get back to camp. Your life sort of depends on it. So you go from an idyllic, beautiful setting and a wonderful day to, holy crap, I've got to get back to camp or I'm going to freeze to death out here. And you have to figure out how to do that when you can't see more than 100 feet in front of you.
You learn to be really prepared before you go out. You write down maybe where you're going to be going, and then hopefully someone's there to see you back. But take the gear that you need under different circumstances.
Yeah. So it's part of the experience in the bush is you really learn to keep track of things. So when you went out in the morning, you're looking at the landforms and everything else. So in case you're coming back and you can't see very much, I recognize that hill.
Yeah.
And this hill that I'm going up now, I recognize this one. I know where my camp is. You're very aware of your surroundings and what's going on, much more so than people who rely on roads and that sort of thing to follow. You don't have roads. The territories, both Nunavut and the Northwest Territories, aren't good at promoting themselves. They should do post-glacial geology tours out of Baker Lake and places like that, because it's quite amazing when you see raised beaches and you see where the ice age formed and how it spread out and how it reshaped the land.
Mm-hmm. Yellowknife is spectacular itself, and I think that's why we're here. Being the capital city is also the reason why we're here and where a lot of jobs are based out of. But the volcanic rocks here are spectacular. There's pillow basalt lavas, similar to the ones formed in Hawaii today, where the lava flows into the ocean and it forms these round bun-shaped sort of volcanic pillows. But in Yellowknife, there's a 3-kilometer section thick of these volcanic pillows. So it's like picture right out of a textbook. They're fantastic examples of pillow basalts. And then the granite intrusions, these large volumes of felsic magma which have come and intruded these volcanic piles and then heated up the surrounding area and probably provided conduits for the quartz and the gold to come in and fill these shear zones that are formed in the area.
And then from Yellowknife, we only have to drive about 60 miles and we go past Ray Edzo and we're in the Mackenzie Valley sediments. So there's fossils everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a piece of petrified wood I showed you. There's dinosaur tracks in the mountains. So we've got the best of the Precambrian shield, the really old rocks, and then we've got all these much newer rocks that with the fossil layers and the way the planet evolved. Yeah. So that's quite spectacular. We have both all in one territory. When I first came up here, Yellowknife was 4,000 people, and it was a northern frontier mining town and a service center for the entire Northwest Territories and Inuvik. So it was very much the frontier spirit was still alive, where you want to get something done, you get out there and you do it. Yellowknife's first arena was built because some guys got together and said, hey, we really need a hockey arena. Let's build one. And they started raising money. They got the mines on board to put money into it, and they literally built the arena themselves. Then the government moved in, and we became the capital city and a bureaucratic center where there's rules for everything now. And that's changed dramatically. For all of Canada, actually, as we've become much more bureaucratic, don't do anything without permission from on high. One of the problems is that the frontier spirit is, you got a problem, let's solve it, let's get at it, and do it.
Together.
With bureaucracy, it's let's have a meeting, and we'll have another meeting, and then we'll have another meeting, and nothing ever gets done.
And we'll say no first and then figure out maybe how we could do it later. But it's usually no first, whereas, people generally think positively and say, yes, we can do this, and figure out a way to do it.
Or you have an office like the mining recorder's office where we have to record our claims and go through the process, but none of those people or the bureaucrats above them have ever staked a claim. So there's a fundamental difference here where you run into problems. Or a lawyer in Ottawa reads the regulations and interprets them one way, sends that interpretation up here, then you read it and you say, this won't work. There's a reason why it won't work, and it won't work. And they say, no, you got to do it this way. That's the way the rules are now. And then 6 months later, they say, yeah, we discovered that's not working, so we're going to change it back.
Yeah.
But in bureaucracies, you often end up with people higher up who are making the rules who have never done the job. So they don't know what you're dealing with. It's partly a lack of understanding. If you live down south in Toronto or in Ottawa, your mind is affected by the conditions there. And they don't realize that in Tuktoyaktuk, at that same time, it's 30 below and there's a blizzard blowing, and you can't get planes in and out. They don't understand the
logistics.
If you're in Toronto, you can get in a car, you can drive somewhere, you can get food. If you're in a small community and you're cut off from the rest of the territories, you've got a much bigger problem. It's trying to wrap your mind around the idea that their conditions are completely different than your conditions. Well, I was doing artwork and training myself to be an artist because I taught myself how to do it. And I was working on my kitchen table. I lived out at Northlands Trailer Park at the time, and I was working on a painting. And I looked out the window, and it was garbage day, so the garbage truck was coming along picking up the garbage. And I sort of said, how come no one up here is painting what we see? What it's actually like in Yellowknife. Most people were painting pretty pictures which you can hang on your wall and, oh, that's a nice tree or a nice scene. But they weren't painting Yellowknife. Well, no, I'm going to paint what I see. Yeah. The pretty pictures and everything else are nice, but I want pictures that tell stories about what I see around me, about the town and about the changing things. And when you do that, each painting becomes also a lesson in history because things change with time. So if I do a painting of a house that's dated a certain date, 20 years later, it's going to look different. And it's going to be different, and the people are going to look different because the population is changing. As an artist, it was sort of my goal to tell stories, And then I decided, well, why am I telling stories that aren't relevant to the world around me?
So Walt ended up painting things like overhead wires, like telephone poles with overhead wires, and dogs in the paintings, and ravens, and garbage on the street, and so painted what he actually saw rather than just a nice scene with northern lights. So a lot of and different occurrences and places. So that one over there, for example, is a picture inside a prospector's tent, and he's looking, sort of out towards the view outside the tent, but all the broken egg containers and fry pans and things that are actually around you.
I like putting a little humor into them. And one of the tents, Brian Weir and I spent over a month in that tent running a geophysical survey. So when I got back to town, I just painted it from memory because I knew the tent very well. Some people complain because I put too many people in some of my paintings, but that's what you see in Yellowknife. You go down to the farmer's market, or you're walking on the trail and all of a sudden a running club runs by. You see a bunch of people. And so you have to do some paintings with people in them. And a lot of artists don't do that. They'll just paint a painting with no people in it. Well, if you live in Yellowknife, you see people. Well, for one thing, when you visit the communities and you talk to the people up here, it's amazing how many of them have 2 or 3 careers, where there'll be a welder part of the time, there'll be a work for forestry part of the time. They're mostly dimensional because we have long summers, but we have long winters. You have to have and in the communities, somebody has to know how to weld. Someone has to know how to do this or that. So a lot of the people, when you get to talk to them and get to know them, you'll find out that they've had 2 or 3 different careers. They're multidimensional. They can do several different things. Where down south, people tend to have one job and they focus on that solely. Up here, there's a lot of artists in this town who have other jobs because you have to make a living. And you can't do that necessarily from your art.
A lot of people have had training in 5 or 6 or 8 different different types of careers, and so people are, like Walt says, multidimensional, or they have a very broad experience range.
Yeah. So in the community, the one fellow will be out every day fishing with his fish nets and getting fish for the community. And then in the winter, he's a plow operator, drives the plow to clear the roads of snow. Often people have these 2 or 3 different, a summer career and a winter career. And in the small communities, there's lots of opportunity for different jobs.
People are pretty self-reliant as well. They rely on their own abilities to survive out on the land and then in town as well.
As I say, a fellow may be working at the diamond mines, job up there. He has his 2 weeks off. He goes out hunting, so he can get some food into the community, because food's very expensive up here, and you have to, in most communities, live partly off the land. Well, I think Canada's a great country. It's got some flaws that need to be fixed, but as far as countries go, we're pretty high up there on the list of places where we're not at war right at the moment. We value education, we value the arts, we have our own way of doing things, and by and large, we're doing pretty good.
Part of being Canadian is having that safety and freedom that we all enjoy.
Thank you for tuning in to this interview of the One Canada Project. I'm very grateful you're on this journey with me. Don't forget to follow or subscribe depending on your platform, and please give us a like if you enjoyed the interview. Thank you for being with me today.